that's heavy. All right, y'all, we got our box of honey. Now it's time to extract. So today I want to walk you through how to get the honey from the frames into a beautiful jar, and let's roll. All right, the first thing we want to do is get an apron on. So this is a sticky, messy business. In fact, a lot of folks like to wear gloves, nitrile gloves or rubber gloves. I find that to be pretty exhausting. Having to wear something that's going to cook my hands for that long. So I try to wash my hands, keep them nice and tidy. We fall under like farm and ranch activity doing this kind of work. So it's not like we're going to be overseen by the health department, but we are making human food. So we want to make sure we take good care of it. So what we're going to do first is just show you the basics of doing it messy. So particularly if you're only harvesting a few frames, boy, it's a lot of money to invest in an extractor and all this kind of equipment. If you're part of a bee club, a lot of times you can borrow that kind of thing or co-op with a friend who has all the gear. But before you sink a lot of money into a lot of gear, you might just harvest frames on your own real simply. So best thing to do is just put the honey through a little bit of cheesecloth. Right? And then the honey will drip into the honey bucket and you can use it. So I use a colander, so I'll put the cheesecloth in a colander. I highly recommend a 2-layer sieve. Remember, the dirty word in honey is filtration. Filtration means we heat the honey and pass it through super fine filters. It takes all the good stuff out of it. So all we're really doing with raw honey is straining it, right? And it's a 2-layer sieve. This is more coarse. This is finer. The honey just passes through there. You get all the bee parts and the wax off of it, and then you want to get your honey into your bucket, right? So I love to have a bucket with a honey gate. That means once I get pure, raw, gorgeous honey in here, then I can fill my jars very easily with this honey gate. It's very meticulous. You can open it just a little bit and drip honey into your jars. So if you don't have one of these, you could buy a honey gate and drill a hole and install it. Doesn't hurt to put a little bit of food grade caulk around that honey gate, but make sure it's leak proof. You don't want your honey all leaking out. So, but your good food grade bucket with the honey gate, I find to be essential. And then a sieve, a two section sieve here. And like I said, we'll start with a little cheesecloth. So maybe I should use scissors, but I'm dangerous. I'm a dangerous man. Okay, so now we got just a layer of cheesecloth. So what we can do with cheesecloth is do what we call crushed comb honey. So crushed comb honey is where we're just going to get the comb in here, then we're going to squeeze it. So I'll take a frame, take a nice frame of honey like this, and in essence, we're really going to just destroy the comb. You can use a spoon, you can use a fork. What we're going to do is just, we've got a plastic foundation under here and drawn comb and a little bit of honey on there. So all we're really going to do is take this is a cappings scratcher. When I harvest, I'll use it like this, but today I'm going to just actually destroy all this comb. Now, it does set the bees back a little bit, meaning they have to go build this back, but for our purposes, it's a good way to harvest just a small quantity of honey. So I'll go ahead and just totally destroy this, right? Totally destroy this. Charlie the Destroyer. Get all that good stuff in there. And then I can just sort of squeeze the goodness out of it, right? That's called crushed comb honey. And this honey is going down through this strainer and into our bucket. And what we're left with is a whole bunch of wax, right? The whole ball of wax. So we can take this wax later, melt it, and then use it for candles. Okay, hands nice and clean. We've got our first stage. The next option is to use an uncapping tank, which means to take the frames and to uncap them into a tank. And I didn't really describe what uncapping is. So this is capped honey, right? This honey is underneath a wax capping, a little bit like cork in a bottle. So all we're doing when we're extracting honey is basically taking and opening these cells, right, and getting the honey out. If you look right here, that is open, taking that wax off and getting it in here. We use, if you're still want to do it pretty small scale and don't want to invest in a lot yet, this is a bucket uncapper. This little thing sits on the edge of your bucket, stands on there nice and firm, and there are little slots for your frames, so then you can go ahead and uncap like this into the bucket and then take that same goop. And so everything's going to go into our strainer, into our sieve, and anything that goes through the sieve, that's raw honey. That's like ready to go, ready to use. So pretty cool. This is an uncapping tank. We sell a few varieties here at the shop. Really, it's really a catchment basin so that the wax sits in this metal pan and the honey goes through to the plastic pan underneath. Right, and then there is a little honey gate right here so that you can then drain that into your sieve, right? And anything that goes through the sieve, that's good honey ready to go. You can use an uncapping knife, right? So there are specialty knives. This is a serrated knife. It's almost like a bread knife, really. And then you can take and uncap using this. Pretty cool. But I find it misses. If you see right here, the honey in this area is just below where the uncapping knife can get to. A lot of beekeepers will use different spacing when they're in honey production in their hives to encourage their bees to build the wax a little bit further out, so then they can use that knife a little more easily. But for me, I find I just use the scratcher. So I love this setup. You've got a little tray and a holder for the frame, and then all you do is just uncap. And here I've zoomed in just a little bit to give you an idea of how that works. And we just uncap. I've seen people use this thing like this and kind of flick the honey off. I don't think that's quite how it's designed. I mean, that works, but I find quick and light scraping will protect a lot of the comb. So I thought I'd show you how I do it at moderate scale. This year's harvest was pretty small, so we're doing it just by hand and not really worrying about more heavy-duty machinery. So we're just uncapping just like this. This is sped up 2 times, and look how much gunk comes off there. That falls right into our uncapping tank. And here we're just putting the frames into our extractor of a 20 frame Maxant extractor. But it is wash, rinse, and repeat like so many things with beekeeping. Repetitive use injuries with the hands are pretty common, so protect your hands and use finesse. I try to move quickly instead of using a lot of power. But get that extractor loaded, and now it's just ready to spin. And this is kind of the fun part. You've been waiting to use this new machine all year. You get your first extractor, and whoa, here we go. And the best part is it like smells so good in the honey house. It is ridiculously delicious smelling in the air. And right here, I want to show you a close-up of this is the honey flecking off the frames onto the side of our cistern, and all that honey is going to run down into the bottom and out the stopcock and go into a bucket. Here, I'm not even straining it. I'm just letting the honey come out. Anticipation, if you're old enough to remember that commercial, it kind of oozes out. And here I'm just filling buckets. I'm not even straining it. I'm going to come back and strain this honey later. But beautiful kind of amber dark mixture. See all that wax in there? That's what we're going to have to strain out, some darker wax and comb. But it makes a great big mess. There's our uncapper. There's filling another bucket here. I'm opening up the stopcock on the uncapper and letting that honey come out off those cappings. That's what we used, we scratched off. And then we're using our 20 frame Maxant extractor to get it rolling. I thought I'd show you some footage from a few years ago. This is our full industrial size kit. This is an upgrade in Maxant. We have this chain uncapper. It's a pretty awesome machine, so we don't have to hand uncap. Really saves a lot of time, and that sits on top of a spinner. We're using the same extractor, this 20 frame, which is a monster, but that's the uncapper, and then that's the spinner where the capping spun, and then it all goes into a clarifier. It's almost like a bathtub that sits on the ground. It has baffles, so the honey passes through these baffles, and then it gets filtered a little bit so that the wax stays behind those baffles, and then we pump the honey from there up into a tank, which is where we're going to then strain the honey through our sieve. Glub, glub, glub. It's like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. Augustus Gloop might be in that tube, I don't know. But then the honey comes out and we just strain it, right? We strain the honey, we take all those wax bits and bee legs out, and we get our beautiful, good Texas honey. And then once it's strained, I'll put it into a bottling tank, and then we bottle it up and sell it right to you. So that's how raw honey gets made. Pretty simple. So that's it. It's a big, messy process. It's one of those things you do it once a year, more or less. I always tell folks, don't build the church for Easter Sunday. So if you've got a honey house, you probably will expand. But I've always gotten away with kind of a corner of a kitchen plus or a workshop room off a garage. Here at Charlie Bee, we use our teaching space for that 1 week that we're doing tons of honey extraction. Make a big mess in here, and then get our honey to our customers. It doesn't take a lot to start making a few dollars with honey at your local farmer's market. Maybe you do it seasonally or once or twice, or do a pop-up. The other thing is just having honey is wonderful to give to friends and family or customers. You get pestered as a new beekeeper with, hey, you're a beekeeper now. When do we get our honey? When do you get our honey? So it is always nice when you finally get a little bit of product that you can share with folks. And it is, to me, honey is public relations for beekeeping, right? And for the bees. People love honey. They love to get excited and talk about honey and all the medicinal properties and benefits of honey. So it's a great thing to share with folks. So see y'all out in the bee yard, and come join us every Saturday, 9 a.m. here at Charlie Bee in Seguin. With exception, we do take the occasional vacation, so keep an eye on our schedule, or put your name in for our weekly email newsletter. I talk about what we're doing in bees and then what we're doing at the workshop every week. We've got a great group of folks who come here, so come join us on Saturdays, or visit charliebee.com for more information.
For imperfect beekeepers everywhere, the Little Yellow Book of Bees is coming in September of 2025. Stay tuned.